So on behalf of the Union for Reform Judaism and Women of Reform Judaism, thank you. Thank you to each of you for joining us today. We're so honored to have Sheryl Sandberg with us to discuss her new documentary, Screams Before Silence. This powerful film addresses the harrowing sexual violence committed by Hamas on October 7th. Sheryl, I'm devastated that we need to be filming documentaries such as yours as we continue to respond to the soul-shattering tragedy of October 7th. In the same breath, I'm so grateful that you are using your platform to bring attention and awareness to the truth of that day. Thank you for being here with us in conversation today, and thank you for your strong, courageous leadership. You are a proud daughter of our reform movement, having been shaped by your time at Camp Coleman in Georgia and in your family's Reform congregation growing up. We'd love you no matter what movement you identified with, but we are so moved by the way you embody our Reformed Jewish values. As another inspiring Jewish woman was told in the book of Esther, and who knows, perhaps you have attained your leadership for just such a moment as this. Sheryl, it is so good to be with you tonight.
Thank you. I'll start with some quick thank yous. Rabbi Jacobs, you came to Congress with me to screen this film, and you've been such an important leader of our movement. Rabbi Hirsch, having a woman with your strong voice has made such a difference. I'm so honored you're doing this with us today. Yolanda, I've been following your comments on the importance of voice, people of all backgrounds speaking out in this moment, and they've mattered so much. Sheila Katz is not with us tonight. She's in Israel. She actually asked me if she should wake up and join. I was like, absolutely not. But it was her idea, and she put this all together. She runs the National Council of Jewish Women, and she has really been my guidepost since October 7th. And I can't not mention my parents, Adele and Joel Sandberg, who are at my childhood congregation, Temple Sinai, watching in community right now. I'm sad this documentary needs to be made. I am sad that I had to use my voice for this, but I do think maybe everything in my life has brought me to this moment. And that is because I am the proud daughter of Adele and Joel Sandberg. I will also say that this movement really shaped my Jewish identity. I grew up in a kind of weird household. We were members of Temple Sinai, but we kept kosher at home, which was very unusual in our synagogue. We were a member of a temple-based chavurah. My parents are probably sitting right next to their friends from chavurah right now. And I went to Camp Coleman in Cleveland, Georgia, and it was absolutely critical in forming my Jewish identity. And I was married by the great Rabbi Jay Moses, who is, I think, a very important leader in this moment. So I want to start by thanking all of you. And saying that this is a film that shouldn't have needed to be made because October 7th should never have happened. And if October 7th did happen, what happened on October 8th and on really shouldn't have happened. I think for so many of us, I was so shocked by October 7th, but I was even more shocked by what happened afterwards. And this film is us as a community standing in solidarity for what we know to be true, which is that we should never tolerate sexual violence as part of any situation. Wartime, peacetime, anywhere in the world. And that's why I'm grateful we are in community. We're gonna, I think, watch a few clips and talk about it, but every single person who's here, whether you're in your home, in your synagogue, at a friend's home, I'm just grateful you're all here with all of us today. An honor to share a stage with Rabbi Jacobs, Rabbi Hirsch, and Yolanda.
Thank you, Sheryl. So let me just a few more sentences about just the frame, but you so beautifully opened why we're here and how important it is to be together in this moment. Our mission today is to bear witness to the stories of the women affected on that tragic day and to ensure that their silenced voices are heard. Regardless of one's perspective on the ongoing war, it is imperative to recognize and condemn the brutal acts of rape, assault, and mutilation perpetuated by Hamas. We can simultaneously acknowledge the profound suffering endured by innocent Israeli citizens and also express our empathy for the innocent Palestinian civilians who are suffering in the midst of the devastating war in Gaza. Acknowledging one group's pain does not diminish the suffering of another. So let us come together to bear witness, demand justice, raise our voices, and commit to preventing such atrocities from ever occurring again. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing moderators today. Yolanda Savage-Narva is the Vice President of our Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team at the URJ. Rabbi Liz Hirsch is the Executive Director of Women of Reform Judaism. Yolanda and Liz, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Rick, and thank you, Sheryl, for being with us today. You truly honor us with your leadership and your presence. Before we begin, I want to take one moment just to acknowledge that we are going to be speaking about sexual violence and sexual assault tonight. We're also going to be speaking about anti-Semitism and the violence of October 7th and the war. And many of those with us on the call tonight are directly impacted by sexual violence, sexual assault, and the ongoing war. We want to just say that we see you and we urge everyone to take care of yourself, and we understand if you need to step away at any time. We want to start out also by getting to know a bit more about who is in the room. And we know that even though we see the two of us, that we have thousands of people in attendance with us today. So you're going to see a poll pop up on the screen just to get a sense of who is here with us. And you can select any choice that applies. You can choose more than one. Reasons you might have joined us here. I think we'll give that another few seconds as folks have a chance to say, Hineni, I'm here, to show up. Great, I think we can take the poll back down. Oh, we have a lot of folks who've said that they're here to bear witness to the silenced women of October 7th, and the people who want to learn ways that they can take action. That's really great and really important, and we're all here together to be able to bear witness. So now we're going to start out by sharing a clip from the documentary. In just a moment, we'll hear Amit Cessna giving testimony. She was a hostage for 55 days after being abducted from her home on October 7th, and we're going to hear her in her own words now.
There were 10 men around me. My instinct was just to fight, to do what I can. I was really scared that they're gonna rape me there and that they're gonna drag me through Gaza streets and parade my body around. I feared that more than being killed. I was chained for 3 weeks in Gaza. I was kept in a really dark room without being able to move. His name was Muhammad. He untied me. I knew that he's up to something. I knew that something bad is gonna happen. I remember thinking, how can I avoid that? There's nothing I can do.
I remember vividly, as I'm sure many of us do, when Amit was released in that first group of hostages, and then later on began sharing her testimony and her story that you reflected in that clip and in the film. You know, even in this brief clip, we know that this film is absolutely devastating to watch, and I hope that folks were able to watch that in community and in support. Unfortunately, for as long as we've recorded our stories and our history, war has led us to the devaluing of women's lives and an increase in violence against women. So Sheryl, I want to start out by asking you, how have people that you've met with and spoken to as you've been out and sharing the film, how have they been reacting and responding so far?
We feel really grateful and lucky that people have responded so well to the film. I should be really clear. I didn't make this film. I am the interviewer in some of it was done in Hebrew and then translated. But this film was made by this incredible team, a woman named Anat Stalinsky, who's a quite famous director in Israel, and Manny Avraham, who is the CEO of Castina Communications. And a little bit of trivia, he made the first season of Fauda, which everyone loved, I loved, along with the recent Nova documentary and other very, very important documentaries. And, you know, it's what Rabbi Jacob said, this is a film that should not have had to be made. But there are too many people denying. But what bothers me even more than the denial, because I feel like those people also are marching from the river to the sea and don't know what river and don't know what sea. You know, they're saying globalize the Intifada without realizing that is a call. That is a call to murder Jews. Like, they really don't get it. It's the silence of a whole bunch of people that I think do understand the situation and are still not brave enough to speak out. And so our idea with this film was, you know, people have seen the reports, but you don't have a chance to really bear witness yourself. And sadly, most of the victims of this crime have died. Most of the victims of this crime are not with us. And so our goal was to give the firsthand witnesses, the eyewitnesses, along with Amit, who is actually, to this date, the only survivor who was sexually assaulted herself, who has spoken out. And she only gave us this video interview. She hasn't done this on camera anywhere else. But give people a chance to see this for themselves, as close as they could. And I think we've heard from a lot of people that bearing witness was really important. I think we've definitely heard from some people that they were skeptical and now they believe, and that's been really important to me and the team that made this film. And, you know, some of the usual suspects are putting videos up on X, like whole videos explaining why this documentary is false. And that just gives us a chance for their views to be out in the open and for us to fight them.
I think the denial and the silence is such a key piece of why the film is so powerful and effective and important. I led a feminist solidarity mission in February to Israel to bear witness to the violence and devastation on October 7th. And we focused particularly on the experiences of women. And as the film opens in particular, you know, you're showing the footage from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, from one of the villages, one of the towns, the kibbutzim, that were attacked on October 7th. And it was really heartbreaking to me to see the images after standing there and seeing the destruction myself, as I know many folks may have who are joining us tonight, but also I think for some people, you really gave them a picture and took them there for those who haven't been. The mission that I led, we called it "We Will Not Be Silent." And I want to know how you think that this film is a call to not be silent and to respond to some of that silence and denial.
Well, I want to start, Rabbi Hirsch, for thanking you for that mission. I've been so struck by, I went to Israel with my parents and my daughter to make this. I've been so struck by how grateful people in Israel are when anyone from the United States shows up. It almost makes me sad. Like, of course we're showing up, but the fact that people like you know, would take these kind of trips. I know there's so many people who are with us tonight, many of my friends from Miami, who have gone repeatedly and really been there to do that bearing of witness. I think it takes, the narrative set in over time. And so the reason it matters for people to bear witness, like my dear family friend, Merle Saferstein, for a very long time was working at the Holocaust Center in Miami. And they were making sure people bore witness. But there are not a lot of living Holocaust survivors, right? And there are not a lot of survivors of October 7th. And so we start the process now of bearing witness, of making sure we see, of making sure we document. Very, very important work is being done in Israel on this. Because remember, it's not just ourselves and this generation we need to convince. Whatever denial is there now, can you imagine what it will be in 80 years, in 100 years, and how important this moment is, not just for the survival of the Jewish people, but I believe for the survival of democracy. in places like America. And I think people really seeing the devastation shows the world what we're up against. And I think right now the world thinks too much that this is Israel's fight and a Jewish fight. This is not. This group is not subtle. They don't just say death to Israel. They say death to Israel, death to Jews, death to America, death to democracy. And so I think that bearing witness is so important for everyone to understand the fullness of the threat we face.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about the extremism and how that is really running rampant, and this is about the particular devastating, challenging experiences of those Israeli women on October 7th, and it's also about so much more than that. One of the quotations, one of the words that were shared in the film that really stood out to me was from women's rights advocate Ruth Halperin Kadari, and she shared in the film, when the body of the woman is violated, it symbolizes the body of the whole nation. And it's really hard to wrap our minds around that. And also it unlocks for me, I think, a piece of what's going on and what's so deeply challenging about what stories were shared and what we've learned about what happened. I wanted to ask you, I think that we're hearing about what happened on October 7th, and then hearing from Amit, hearing from the others who have returned, the returned hostages. And we know at the same time that there are those who are still being held hostage in Gaza today. And something that I've been particularly concerned and speaking out about is the continuing risk of sexual violence for those who remain as hostages in Gaza. And we're hearing, we're seeing, we're protesting with them in the streets as we can. We're sending our solidarity from afar with both the survivors and also the families of hostages who really, I think, feel forgotten and like the world has ignored what happened to them. So how can we best focus on really sharing out the stories of the victims and also drawing attention to the acute challenge and the real risks of sexual violence still faced by the hostages who remain in Gaza?
It's such an important question. I had the absolute honor of meeting Rachel and John Poland, who have been just such a force, especially her, for their son Hirsch. And I think put another face on this that the world has needed to see, both the face of a hostage, but the face of a mother. In the film, I interview Ayelet, whose daughter, Nama, 19 years old, very famous video from the beginning of October 7th. She's the one who is kind of dragged from the back of a car. She's wearing no shoes, and her gray sweatpants look like they're bloodied right in the area, where that would suggest severe sexual violence. We're not thinking maybe the hostages who are there are being raped. We know they're facing sexual violence. In this film, one of the released hostages, Chen, says that of the hostages she spoke to who are still there, half of them were being sexually assaulted. And that's when she was released many months ago. So we know it can only go up, it doesn't go away. And so we know for sure that this is happening. You mentioned Ruth's quote, and I think Ruth's quote is so important because it's worth just taking a minute to think about why silence on this is not at all acceptable. It's obviously for Israel and for Jews and for the survival of our people and our country, but it's actually the survival of women all over the world. When you think about the history of war, it's weird to think about it, but there are actually rules of war. War is about killing people. You'd think there would be no rules, but there are. No chemical weapons, no nuclear weapons, right? No biological weapons, and only recently, no rape and no sexual violence. Until 30 years ago, rape was just part of war. Only in the last 30 years after the former Yugoslavia, Bosnia, the DRC, did the world an international body start prosecuting rape as the war crime and the crime against humanity it is. I had the honor of sharing a stage recently with Dr. Denis Mukwege, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on this. He's a gynecologist in the DRC. And he said the most chilling thing, and it goes to what Ruth said. He said, this is an incredibly effective weapon for two reasons. The first I was familiar with. The first was because it's what Ruth said, it violates a nation. there is something so primal about the violation sexually of women that it just terrorizes nations. It breaks communities apart. When people are left alive, they're pregnant. Sometimes their husbands walk away from them. It destroys communities. But then he said something else, which was just chilling. He said, and it's free. It's free. All right, it's hard to talk about this. You don't have to buy a rocket. You don't have to buy a gun. Like, this is a free weapon, and it is happening right now to our hostages in Gaza. It is happening right now in Sudan, right now in Ethiopia, right now in Haiti, right now around the world. And if we don't remember that we need to use our voices against it, we stand to lose so much. And isn't it interesting that Hamas has kind of proudly claimed everything else they did? I mean, they filmed it. Yay, mom and dad, I killed a Jew. But they deny the rapes. It's the only thing, as far as I can tell, they deny. That's because this is such a devastating weapon, and it is so clearly a crime against humanity. And I think we need to remember, and every wing of our party, the progressive wing, the conservative wing, every wing of every party, and every wing of our religion has to be united that these kind of sexual crimes and what happened on October 7th in general are not permissible. This is not resistance.
It is so, so difficult to even think about that, to process it. And at the same time, I think it's so important to hear that loud and clear, that rape must never be a weapon of war. And yet, time and again, on October 7th and in all the other situations and circumstances and around the world that you called out, it is. And we need to stand up and to speak out and to say it unequivocally and clearly. I think that something that stood out to me also is toward the end of the film, as we are tonight, we heard some of your own reflections about what making this film and leading this issue has meant to you. And Rabbi Jacobs referenced a quotation that's one of my favorites as well from the book of Esther. Who knows, maybe just for this moment, you find yourself in a position of leadership. And I heard a little bit in what you shared then and what you've shared so far here tonight about sort of coming to this moment and seeing that this is an important piece and that you have been leading to this moment to step up and lead in this way. I'm wondering, what has that meant to you to step up and to lead at a time like this? And then what are some of the lessons that others can draw from that?
No, look, this isn't about me. This is about all of us and every single one of us doing what we can within our power to lead. My own path is I obviously worked in social media. I've spoken out as a Jewish woman before. I was raised to be very affiliated. But I think I could have been more affiliated over the last many years. And I think I could have been more active, and I could have seen more clearly the anti-Semitism that we face. And I have learned a lot since October 7th. I look at people like you, Rabbi Hirsch. I look at Yolanda, Rabbi Jacobs, certainly Sheila Katz, as people who are ahead of me. My parents were ahead of me. I had also, just on a personal note, retired from my day job, promised myself I was going to be like a quiet, nice public citizen and not be public, I think, hopefully ever again, because it was a lot for a long time. And then this happened, and I just was waiting for someone else to speak out, and then they weren't doing it. So I did. And I'm glad I did. But I know that I'm just one person doing my part. I think when our way of life is threatened, when we are nervous, I have college-age kids. I'm nervous to send my college-age kids to campuses. I told my son, who was going on a trip, traveling for a gap year right after October 7th, I asked him to take his Jewish star off around his neck. That's a terrible moment for a parent. When this happens, we all have to kind of throw out the window what are the things that may have been more important to us a week before and rise to the occasion. And I've certainly tried to do that, but I am just so in awe of the people I see, person after person after person that I know, people that were there all along, people that are now more connected. I mean, I feel part of a community in a way that I never have before. I have friends that I talk to Sheila all the time. I did not know Sheila Katz before October 7th. And that is one of the things that we learn from this. And so I'm doing my very small part, but I think you're doing your part, and every single person on this call in these communities, we're all doing our part. And this is going to take a long time. We have gotten here slowly, I believe, over decades, not really understanding how our kids were getting educated in states like California, not really understanding what the curriculum, at least I didn't understand, you may have, but I didn't understand what was happening on our college campuses, what they were teaching in terms of history of the Middle East. And so we are going to have to be in this for decades. This is going to take us a long time to get back to a place that I think is reasonable and balanced, where every life, as Rabbi Jacob said, every life in Israel, every life in Gaza can be taken with the sanctity it deserves. Every single person deserves to live in peace. And that is not happening across this region. And every single life lost, not on both sides, on all sides, is a complete tragedy.
Amen. We pray that it is so. And we know, feeling the power of so many thousands of us gathered here tonight, and those who have connected and who have stepped up and each played their part, that we are working toward making that so. Sheryl, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it now to my colleague Yolanda for our next set of questions.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Hirsch. And hello, Sheryl. Thank you so much for being here and speaking to us tonight, for bringing to light this very powerful and necessary documentary. We really appreciate you. Before we begin, I would also like to bring up another poll and have the audience take a look at it. And remember, select all that apply. All right, thank you so much. We wanted to know what challenges you're facing right now. And looking at the poll, it seems like there are a lot of things out there that people are dealing with. And I think we are looking at collective and individual trauma and pain. And it's important for us to know that we are not alone, that we're all in this together. And we know that there are a lot of multiple truths out there. And so we just want to hold each other in this moment. So Sheryl, we're going to play the clip, and then I think we're going to dive in and talk a little bit.
Sexual violence was used as a weapon of war against women on October 7th, but many people say it never happened. We're here to show them it did. The video you're about to see, it's gruesome. It's what happened on October 7th. The video was recorded by Hamas. These are people being kidnapped.
A lot of people are denying the atrocity that happened on October 7th to Israeli women. So that's the reason we're here.
Girls without skirts, without pants, they were abused.
A lot of the bodies were naked, totally. You couldn't identify if it's a man or a woman.
How do you feel after seeing that?
It kind of hurts. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
Disheartening to say the least.
People don't deserve that. It's so sad to see that.
People don't believe this happened when there's living proof right here.
It's pretty awful. You can't say that this didn't happen.
There is no gray area here. Hamas needs to just back away and stop the horrible things they're doing.
When people deny this, will you advocate for Jewish women after what you saw?
You don't deserve a death that brutal and tragic.
I have this necklace. It says in Hebrew, bring them home. See you wearing that with kafia. It's like the word piece that we're looking for.
I think this is eye-opening. I think a lot of people don't understand anything about what's happening to women on the other side. Thanks for being out here.
Sheryl, for me, watching the reactions of others as they viewed the images of the attack on October 7th was just heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. Why now? Why this documentary right now in this moment?
To give people a chance to bear witness, to give people a chance who want to remember what happened, need more ability to talk to others. In your poll, which, by the way, I think that polling is so great. What a great way to bring everyone together and to realize where your audience is. More people should do that. This is the first Zoom I've ever been on that did that. So congratulations to you all for that. But one of the things you could check is I'm having trouble discussing this with others. So there are so many people who say, well, this didn't happen. And then if you're to say, well, I read about it. This gives you, I read about it, here's the story. It gives these stories to come alive. So if you watch this film, and I hope all of you have, or you will, it's on YouTube, it's free to watch for anyone. You'll watch me walk into a forest with a guy named Rami. I mean, this man is a hero. He's ginormous, he towers over me. And we walk into a set of trees. Now on October 7th, kind of the sirens go off. He gets in his car, gets his gun. He is a private citizen and just drives to save people. And he saved hundreds of people himself, including walking up to terrorists who were kidnapping someone, speaking in Arabic, pretending he was one of them and saying, I'll take her. And they handed her over, saved that woman. But he saved tons of people who were hiding. But he got to this one area of a forest and crying, he looks at the trees and he explains how, and I'm sorry, this is very graphic stuff. And I know, Rabbi Hirsch warned us, but we have to talk about this. He gets to this area of trees and people are tied and their legs were spread and they were naked and bleeding from their genitals. I mean, that's sexual violence. And I think this film gives people a chance to see that for themselves. One of the questions people ask is, in the film, you'll see them, the first responders, show me the pictures they took. We don't show those pictures in the film for two reasons. The first is we don't have permission from the families of these people. And that is just something we all have to be deeply respectful of. The second is that it would actually violate YouTube or any platform's terms, and the film would get pulled down. So we weren't able to show them. But you can see that they're there. And these are people who, they took those pictures themselves. I mean, it's interesting because the people in Zaka, this organization in Israel that is trained, they go all over the world and they basically prepare bodies for burial. And they are trained not to take pictures. Like, they do not take pictures. And kind of 24 hours in, or at different stages, a bunch of them started realizing, oh my God, no one is going to believe this. And they started taking pictures. Thank God. I hope with all the rabbis here, thank God is an appropriate thing to say, but thank God, because those pictures were the ones shown to Pramila Prattan of the UN. Those pictures are the ones that are the proof we needed. And this film gives people the closest chance we can give them to bear witness themselves.
It just takes tremendous courage to do that, to make sure that those who are voiceless have an opportunity to have the stories told. And it's really, really important for us to hear that. Thank you for that. Sheryl, what are your thoughts on some Western feminist women who are just simply not acknowledging the sexual violence against women on October 7th, even with the proof, even with all of the proof you just named? Do you think that there may be a correlation between the denial that's happening around October 7th and the sexual violence and experiences of women of color, both in the United States and globally?
I mean, I do. If we can only understand, empathize, process, and fight against things we've experienced ourselves, we have a problem. And so, my foundation, Separately Lean In, we do the largest survey every year of women in the world, and it shows women in the US workplace and the world workplace. It shows every year that the people having the worst experiences are women of color. We put that information out there. I'm not a woman of color. I have not had those experiences myself, but I need to be able to process experiences I have not had, show them, document them, empathize with them to help fight them. Most of the victims have died. This film is called Screams Before Silence because this beautiful woman who was at the Nova Film Festival, I go with her into her trailer. She's very tall, and she had to hid scrunched up in this trailer for, 6-7 hours. And she said she heard the violence, and she would hear a little scream and then a shot, which was someone being killed quickly. But every so often she would hear, and again, sorry for the graphic nature of this, screams, no, 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 stop, 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 15 minutes, 20 minutes, followed by a shot. And then when she got out of that trailer, what she saw were naked bodies that had been obviously raped and sexually violated. And so the point is we need to believe that happened, even though it didn't happen to us. Now, for me, I have spent so much time thinking about the role the progressive feminist movement has played in this and not played in this, because I consider myself a progressive feminist, and I remain to this day a proud progressive feminist. But the movement that taught us, and I was part of this, that we believe women, the movement that taught us that we need to pay attention to, micro biases, that they're important. I believe that. That same movement needs to look at this and say, screaming from the river to the sea is unacceptable. Screaming from the river to the sea is nowhere for the Jews to go. Screaming, globalize the Intifada, screaming at Jewish students, go back to Poland, that's not okay. And saying, maybe this didn't happen. My personal thing that upsets me the most is when I hear someone say, where are the victims speaking out? This didn't happen. And you're like, they're dead. They killed 1,200 people. Almost all of the victims of October 7th have died or are in captivity. That's what we know. The people that came face to face with the terrorists, very few survived. And so that denial is not okay. And then we have to decide why the denial, why the lack of paying attention. And I think it comes down to two reasons. The first is I think part of it's anti-Semitism, pure and simple. I did an event at the UN with some of the witnesses who were in this film, and I took those same witnesses to Europe, to parliaments in Europe, to France, to London, to Berlin, because I think the European parliaments even more need to know that this happened. And we had a lunch in Paris, and this woman stood up and she said this, these are her words. She said, I'm not Jewish, but I have run a nonprofit in Paris that's worked on sexual violence and conflict for 30 years. And in my entire life, every time we surface that this is happening, it's happening in the DRC, it's happening in Sudan, it happens all over the world, all anyone ever says is, how do we make it stop? This is the first time in my life they're saying, did this happen? I don't think this happened. And her answer was, there has to be anti-Semitism here because there's no other reason. So I think that's part of it. And we need to acknowledge that and face that and fight that. The same way we continue to fight racism of all forms, bias of all forms, hatred of all forms, anti-Muslim hate, we fight it all and we fight it together. And then the next thing is, I just think polarization is about only being able to hold one narrative in your head and believing the world is black and white. So when you see a fact that doesn't fit your narrative, you either have to rethink your narrative or you have to deny it. And if you believe there are people out there, there are Jews, there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are people of all faiths, all backgrounds, all countries who believe that October 7th was resistance. And I want to be clear, I don't think this kind of brutal murder would ever be resistance. I believe in a two-state solution. I believe that everyone should be living under a government that wants peace and prosperity for themselves and their neighbor. And that is not what the people of Gaza and the Palestinian people have. And they absolutely deserve better. I believe that. But even if you believe this was resistance, then you think, oh my God, there was rape. Rape is not resistance. Everyone knows that. So then you have to think, wait a second, maybe my narrative is not so easy. Maybe it's not so black and white. Maybe this was terror. Or you can reject that it happened. And the fact that we see so many people rejecting it rather than processing differently is, I think, part of a larger problem about having real, open, and honest dialogue, real debate about what should happen in the Middle East, real debate where we learn and teach our children to process facts that don't fit our narratives. And that's part of why I made this film, was to help people have an opportunity to do that.
And Sheryl, I think it's incredibly powerful. We have to push people to be uncomfortable with learning and understanding what's going on. I really appreciate that. I think we are going to close and then let Rabbi Hirsch come on, but I do want to just summarize some things you said that I think are very powerful. And I want to use Dr. Maya Angelou's words that said, we can be changed by what happens to us, but we refuse to be reduced by it. And I really think that this documentary forces all of us, regardless of if we're Jewish or not Jewish, no matter what our background, to bear witness. And it commands deep kavod, deep dignity, respect for life, and the sanctity of women. And I thank you so much for bringing this to light and having these discussions. Hand it back to my colleague, Rabbi Liz Hirsch.
Yolanda, Sheryl, thank you so much. Jewish wisdom teaches us that it is not your duty to complete the work, and you are also not free to ignore it. Each of us is here tonight bearing witness, supporting women, crying out for safety and an end to suffering and peace for everyone, everyone. Some of the folks who came here tonight through the URJ, WRJ, and there are those connecting to something here tonight for the first time. We're all a part of this now. And the work that we need to do is great, maybe even immeasurable. And the stakes are also extremely high. Everyone has laid out the stakes tonight of what we're up against. And at the same time, we are all here so we can take action powerfully together. This past winter, a bill condemning sexual violence on October 7th passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support. Now we are urging the Senate to support similar legislation. So we're all going to take a moment right here, right now, and complete an action alert together. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Barbara Weinstein, Director of the Commission on Social Action of Reform Judaism. As we complete the action alert, Barbara will explain the importance of us taking this action. Thanks, Barbara.
Great, thank you, Liz. And Sheryl, thank you as well for your leadership and all the work you're doing around this. Earlier in our program, we had a poll, and many of our participants, each of you on the Zoom, said you wanted to understand how you can take action. And one essential step is making sure that members of Congress hear from us about the importance of recognizing the atrocities that occurred on October 7th. Because the weight of formal recognition from Congress is essential to affirming the voices of the women who were impacted by this violence. When you send an email to your senators and representatives, but in this case, we're really focusing on the Senate, they keep track of who is writing about what and how many communications they receive. So your outreach really does make a difference. Members of Congress always are eager to hear and know what their constituents are thinking about and caring about. And because so few people actually take the time to reach out and communicate with their members of Congress, the voices of the people that do carry a weight that is exponentially greater than their actual numbers. And we're making it easy for you. At the link that's in the chat, we have pre-drafted a message for you to send. All you need to do is put in your name and your address. And if you, and based on your zip code, it will automatically identify who your senators are. And if you want to make some changes to the message that's in the body, you can make those edits too before sending off the message. You know, one thing that's always incredibly powerful is a personal story. And whether that's a personal story because you have a connection to someone who was directly impacted on October 7th, or you're feeling the power and emotion from watching the documentary or from this conversation, those are the stories to convey to your senators when you send this communication. And though I know the importance of this issue makes us want to reach out to every member of Congress, congressional etiquette is such that members will only respond to or take count of the communications that come in from their own constituents. So don't get over zealous in your communications directly, but what you can do is reach out to friends and family members via email, via social media, and share this link with them as well, and get them to email their members of Congress also. Because with your help, we can amplify our voices and make sure that this bill is quickly passed by the Senate. So I want to thank all of you for joining us as we take this important action. And I'm now honored to turn the program back over to Rabbi Rick Jacobs.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you, all of you, for taking action. It's simple, it's powerful, it's right there at our fingertips. But it doesn't end at this moment. You'll receive an email in about 10 minutes with additional action steps that you can take, including the ability to send this action alert to your friends and even your colleagues. These action steps include hosting a screening of Screams Before Silence with your friends and family, with our at-home viewing guide, and sharing our screening toolkit with your local congregation or other large community so they can host a viewing. Additionally, in this email, there'll be a survey link. Your survey responses allow us to continue to provide you with relevant, meaningful content. We look forward to continuing our partnership as advocates for the women affected on October 7th. It seems clear, just to pick up the thread of the conversation throughout this hour together, it seems so clear that in too many progressive circles, the sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas is overlooked. Why? Because the women who were brutalized were Israeli Jews. That's an ugly truth, to be sure, but the denialism of the horrors of that day must be called out. And as we heard in Sheryl's film, we know for certain the women who are being held hostage right at this moment by Hamas are experiencing ongoing sexual violence. The silence of the world is truly deafening. Some things I know are really complicated, but it shouldn't be so complicated to condemn sexual violence wherever and whenever it takes place. I'd like to reiterate Yolanda's insightful words. Multiple truths can coexist. We must strive to understand these truths and avoid falling into binary either-or thinking. The truth is that Hamas used rape, assault, and mutilation in a brutal rampage of sexual violence. We can acknowledge this truth while also critically examine what Israel has done in response. I'm a rabbi, so just let me go back to the Bible for a moment, if it's okay. In the book of Genesis, the Holy One commands Abraham with these two words, Shema Kolah. Listen to Sarah's voice. Tonight, we have listened to the voices of women who will not be silenced. Sheryl Sandberg, your voice continues to be a clarion call to conscience in this excruciating moment. We are so profoundly grateful for your moral courage and leadership. And I know tonight's discussion is weighing heavily upon each and every one of us. In response, there's so much we can, there's so much we must, there's so much we will do. I want to thank the Women of Reformed Judaism for their incredible partnership in tonight's event. I also extend my gratitude to Rabbi Liz Hirsch and Yolanda Savage-Narva for their insightful and heartfelt moderating. Sheryl, would you please share with us your closing reflection?
I was writing down some of the things you said. I guess I want to say thank you to all of you for your leadership. I want to remind all of us that it is our responsibility to bear witness, and also remind us that at the end of this, we come back to who we are, and not just the challenge of being Jewish, the challenge of persecution through the ages, but the joy of being Jewish. I spoke to a rabbi friend of mine just yesterday, and he and I were talking about this, and the joy of being Jewish, the pride we have, so that we can wear our Jewish stars. My son put his back on, I'm wearing mine proudly, knowing that we fight. We fight against hatred, we fight against terrorism, we fight against tyranny. We fight for better lives, not just for ourselves, but for all who deserve it. And that's everyone. I'm really grateful to be part of this community and this very, very large extended congregation. And grateful to you, Rabbi Jacobs, for pulling this together tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And let's get busy bearing witness and getting our action steps out there so we can shape a more just, more compassionate, more loving world. Thank you all.